Very good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back. We are excited to welcome you to our latest discussion in today's virtual fireside chat titled Building Brands That Thrive in India's Dynamic Market. We are eager to bring this insightful conversation to you live, exploring the evolving landscape of brand building in India and the strategies that drive success in this dynamic market. So, let me introduce our esteemed guest for today's conversation, Mr. Amit Mittal. As we all know, Mr. Amit is a founder and managing director of Medaski Consulting. Mr. Amit has an impressive track record serving as a senior advisor to McKinsey and Company and holding an alumni status of both Stern New York University and the London School of Economics. With a wealth of experience in management consulting, Mr. Amit is an expert in business growth strategies and guiding companies through complex challenges to achieve sustainable success. His visionary approach has reshaped many brands that grow and thrive in competitive markets. Joining Mr. Amit is Mrs. Monit Khera. Mrs. Monit Khera is a textile specialist with over 25 years of experience in the home and lifestyle industries and having worked with top international brands and Indian retail. A graduate of NIT Ahmedabad, her deep understanding of design, product, and the Indian market gives her a distinct edge. Her entrepreneurial experience combined with her ability to build and position brands make her a valuable asset. With a strong grasp of India's complex market dynamics, she has successfully navigated its diverse communities, design preferences, and price sensitives, making her insights especially impactful in the largest consumer market. Today, we will dive deep into how brands can differentiate, innovate, and stay relevant in a dynamic market like India's. Whether you're an entrepreneur or an established brand, this conversation promises to offer key takeovers that will inspire your growth journey. So let's get started with the engaging sessions, and I'll hand it over to Mr. Amit Mittal. So over to you, sir.
Thank you, Neha, for wonderful start of the session. Uh, Thank you all the attendees for joining our live event. I think we've been working really hard to bring a lot of information and a lot of insight into different areas of business which are challenging in the current world. Today's topic, building brands that thrive Indian dynamic market. We are focusing on the Indian dynamic market and building brand in that space. It's been challenged for a lot of people. Like I think to start with it, Monet is a good friend. We've been there for last. I know Monet for last 10 years, and we worked together, and then we've been engaged in a couple of assignments wherein we are helping clients on building their brands and the journey of building a brand and the product launch in the market. Right, Monet. Let me ask you, what is the one most memorable branding campaign you worked and why?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much, Amit, for getting me over today for this passionate subject of conversation. When you speak of the most commemorable brand establishment that I've done, I'm forced to go back to my experiences that I've had with Indocount when they were trying to establish their retail entity in India. I think by and large, the most satisfying part of associating with ICIL was trying to get a window to establish the brand from a scratch, building up the DNA, and coming up with a property which resonated with the end consumer so well. So that's one thing which I hold very close to myself. The second is a very strong property that I worked on, which came to India for the first time, and the brand custodian for India market got in touch with us, speaking of the possibility of trying to get this property onto bed linen category. The property was called Happiness Is. It's a very popular page run by two, graphic designers, Lisa and Ralph, based out of San Francisco. And the page has over 3 million followers across the world. The property was very interesting, and we were actually struggling to find a mid path to figure out how we could take it to the bedding division. It's an illustration-based, property which has only black and white in terms of the concept ideation. So the whole exercise of trying to establish that brand in India was very challenging because my primary focus was to try and convince the studio to let us use color, considering that we're going on to the bed. And it meant fiddling with their language that they'd created so far. And fortunately, the India stakeholder was very supportive, and we could manage to bring this property in India through the company that I was associated with them. And gives me great pride to also mention that after we launched this property in India, there were the likes of Home Center who also joined the bandwagon, and we were actually providing style guides to a lot of them. So it's something which I hold very close to my heart.
Okay, great. I think that's lovely to hear about that. I think what I've seen is there a kind of a recipe for creating a brand and having a brand position in the market and doing really well. I would like to mention about, say, for example, if I'm building a brand, it's like getting a furniture from IKEA and you have all the tools in place, but when you're trying to fix it and make it into a furniture, then you realize one of the tools is still pending to be placed over there. So building a brand is something like that, where you actually have all the tools and equipment, but still you feel something is missing. And why does it happen so? Any insights that you would like to share on that?
Yeah, so my understanding, having worked on the export and the retail side of textile business, has given me various dimensions to understanding the business models across the world. If I name the international associations that I've had, I've been lucky enough to get a chance to work with Li & Fung and the Cost World and the Neiman Marcus of the world. And at the same time, I've had this challenge of working for the Indian market. Now, when I say Indian market, I try and look at it with great respect and honor, for the very simple fact that when you're working with the US market, you know their sensibilities are similar across the entire continent. India is very dynamic in that format, and I feel India definitely gives you an opportunity to experiment a lot and also risk a lot. It's like cooking a recipe out in an Indian kitchen, which means kahin haldi zyada hai, kahin namak zyada hai, to kahin meethe ki zarurat hai. You have to come up with your own recipe to try and figure out what Indian retail is. But all I can say is it's a very interesting platform, and it allows you to understand different market seasons, different geographical locations, different demographics. There are too many complexes to look into when you start working for Indian retail. So it's not easy. So yes, what I'm saying basically is that if there is somebody who's trying to enter the Indian market, his very strong reason has to be the why part. Why do you want to have a brand? I think that's the primary area that needs to be identified.
Right.
The rest of it falls in place. Yeah.
Absolutely. So if I put it in a form where, what are the key elements that you think which will hold good or which will define the strong and successful brand? Is it identity? Is it the authenticity? Is it emotional connect with the customer? What do you think is the right elements that are needed for the strong and successful brand?
See, I would rate this need to, in two parts. And when I say this, I'm looking at two very strong reasons to have a brand in the first place. One is your RTB, your reason to believe that you as a brand, a custodian or a brand company, why do you want to bring a brand in inception? Two is, if you have decided to do that, what is the persona or the personality of your brand? I would always recommend, and I've seen it working, that you speak to people and you tell them to treat that brand as a separate person. As a person present in a board meeting, a separate chair, which is the brand chair. Basically, it allows you to, have that personality walking in such a way that the personality itself will decide to tell you this is for me and this is not for me. So primary focus is to get your whys in place. Why would you want the personality of a brand to come in? And that personality can resonate from the reasons of why you want to enter a market. Are you a manufacturer? Is that the reason why you're getting into establishing yourself as a brand in the market? Are you good with networking? You're a great PR person, if that is the reason. Or are there any special causes that drive you mad and you feel that having a brand around it is going to work for you? So your why is basically going to be the recipe of how later. I mean, that's how I look at it always.
Wow, this is wonderful. Like you mentioned about having a chair in a boardroom for the brand, and that I like about, because it needs that position. It needs that placement in, and the seriousness when you're creating a brand. So creating a brand is like nurturing a small baby who's still not learned how to walk, and then you'll have to make that run and be successful in the market. Great. Uh, when we are creating a brand from scratch, how do you think you align the brand vision and long-term business goal? What do you think are the
Well,
main um, criteria for having a brand vision and the long-term business goal?
I'll lead this by example so that people who are joining us today for the conversation can relate to it easily.
Yeah,
Um, like I said, the reason to have a brand is very important. Like I said today, if I'm a manufacturer and I'm known very well across the globe, but in my own continent, people don't know me, and if this is my urge to be the brand, then definitely a lot of my personality is sketched out in a way that globally I'm known for XYZ aspects. How many of these aspects can be translated and married off to my Indian consumer sensibility? That is the primary reason. That's
right,
why conceiving a brand and the reason to conceive it is very important. Personality, I've always spoken about, and I'll repeat again that once you've set the personality of your brand, then your do's and don'ts become clear. Then internal
right,
ways of optimizing the persona as well as the reason to have a brand. I mean, is it because I want to ensure that my manufacturing setup is going to be used to build up the business and retail market? Then obviously I have to have a different recipe. But if I'm somebody who is more on the social networking side, or social entrepreneur is something that excites me, or I'm more on the causes, then maybe my driving factor is something else. मेजरेबल्स हमेशा हेल्प करते हैं अमित. मेरा ये मानना है कि अगर आप कोई भी प्लान ऑफ एक्शन लेते हैं तो प्लान और एक्शन के बीच का गैप सबसे पहले कम होना बहुत जरूरी है. If you've been able to put your plan in place and your actions are aligned, then having a 5-year plan with a measurable always make sure that your mistakes are recurringly curtailed and checked at various checkpoints. When I talk of just a brand, I cannot keep the product away, because when you're talking of the Indian consumer, very complex, though we are open to adapting as a country. Um, and when I say adapting, I genuinely am looking at the times about 25, 30 years back when brands like Philips used to come up with their sets of designs. And after having run those designs in their subcontinent for 12, 15 long runs, the same designs were passed on to India, and Indian consumer adapted to it. So clearly, we as the continent are great at adapting things. While I think today the time has come where people start looking at us as a sensible consumer and start building their properties, brands, and products around us. In fact, that's the reason why half the globe today is interested to come to this country, because they know the worth is there. People are traveling, they all are exposed, they know what to buy, what not to buy. And there is buying power is great here. Deep rooted context of product. When you're saying, if I'm looking at something that I've probably done in the US market, and if I had to bring that to India, I cannot do that if I've not correlated it to my consumer need. So very simple
absolutely.
example is addressing basic sizes and dimensions which are available in this country. There is a gap. If you don't meet the basic requirement of trying to match the product with the options available, even if you're great, your product will be washed out very soon. And most important, I say, when people start off, is to try not to have a situation which puts you under pressure to reach a point wherein you are forced to dilute the ethos of the brand, or the value of the brand that you've created. So personally speaking, if you're talking of starting for a brand with this, which is a long-term proposition, 4 to 5 points, but with measurables, will always ensure that you are there and you have ample time to go back and correct your working slate.
Absolutely. I think very well said. Do you think the goals are important or the milestones? So, for example, if you're building a 5-year strategy for a brand, and within that you have a milestone so that you can start ticking it off. Otherwise you might go off track when you are on the journey of building a brand and achieving certain milestones. Do you think that is important, that you need to have the right milestones in place and the measurable, those which are measurable in the brand?
Of course. In fact, it's not just imperative to have goals in place. It's also imperative for you as the brand custodian to align your team with those brand ethoses, with those sensibilities that you're trying to bring on, so that multiple brains start working in the same direction. So while you may have a perception of a brand, if that perception is sticking to your boardroom conversation, and if it is not getting translated to your downline or your people who are going to be actually stakeholders and workers to take the lineage forward, then you've actually missed the bus. And when I'm talking of having milestones, it's basically to ensure that your losses are not bleeding enough for you to start hurting. And that's the reason why having milestones matters. So there are various zones of business wherein there are times when you are just required to put in funds or the capital to ensure that there is enough rotation for a brand to be visible, so there's an expense at end. But whether you're, as a smart business runner, whether you're able to convert that expense into an opportunity for you, requires very rigorous planning and strong alignment with your team members and stakeholders. So a goal and a plan, it's hand in glove. It's hand in glove.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Uh, and this is important because the team is the one who's actually representing a brand, who's working on a brand on day-to-day basis, and they have to be aligned for that. Absolutely, I agree with you on that. Uh, uh, India is a very big market, but also there's a stiff competition in the market, right? There's a lot of players in the market, and the price point competition is huge over here, right? Uh, what we've seen, I'll give you an example. Again, we started with the kitchen and making something. So I'll give you an example of a kitchen where you go to a store and then you try to pick the right masala or a biryani masala, for example. You are not able to identify which one is the right one. You have 50 different brands over there, and which one is the right one, you don't know about it, and which will make the right recipe, which people will say, "Wow, I love it." That, and how do you differentiate your brand from your competitors, and especially in the saturated market?
Simply by being agile. I think all I can say is if you are alert and in sync with what's happening around you, it will give you as to where the trend is going, what the consumer is thinking, what the youth is thinking, what the people your TJ is thinking, and that will give you confidence to step in further to try and come up with something that is relevant. The moment it is relevant, it finds takers. For instance, today's generation is more into experience. Now, when I say Gen Z, they don't want to invest into buying homes. They don't want to invest into, deciding to settle in a city. They want to keep moving. So they travel where the opportunities are. What they want to keep for themselves is experiences. So
Right,
clearly, this is not the generation which is going to hoard.
right, absolutely.
This is going to let it all go and try and be minimally
I think we are facing little internet problem. Uh, Monet, you're not audible. I think there is an issue with the internet. I think by the time Monet joins, so let me give you some kind of a feedback on what are the things that you can do in a saturated market, which will place you apart of your competitors. I think one thing which is very important is unique selling proposition. You need to have a right unique selling proposition, and I can tell you each and every brand has a unique selling proposition. You need to identify that unique selling proposition in your business and do it. Uh, I can talk about Apple, where Apple talks about think different. Domino's is able to deliver a pizza in 30 minutes or it is free. So those are the unique selling proposition that these brands have created, and that is helping them to actually overcome the challenge of competition in the market. Even though Domino's is not the best of the pizza, but actually they are able to capture a sizable share in the market just because they are able to deliver the pizza within the right time. When you are hungry, you want it in 30 minutes, or it is free. That's a very, very strong unique selling proposition. Monet, you are back. I think we lost you for some time. Maybe
Yeah,
you can start from
connection.
where we lost you. Right. We were talking about like competition in this saturated market, and how do you differentiate yourself from that?
Okay, so while you were giving the example of Domino's, I can't help but bringing the example of a service provider like Urban Company. I'm sure all of
Okay.
us get to work with them on regular basis, whether you have to put a nail on the wall or a washroom that needs to be cleaned. Literally, Urban Company has taken over in such a way that people, it's like a go-to for any kind of service. That's the first place you look for. The second best example is Amazon, considering that it has a platform for all brands to sell. The fact that the Indian consumer today has the opportunity to return the goods back if they don't like it, I think it's one of the biggest USPs that they have created in the Indian market. Amazon doesn't operate like this in other parts of the world, which clearly means that for Indian market, they've had to reinvent their strategies. This year,
Absolutely.
when we were out in the USS, August is when the USS sale happens across all brands. I was very surprised to see IKEA running sales, which was a big, bell ringing in our ears, saying that if you want to be in India, you have to talk our language. You have to
Yeah,
resonate with what
absolutely.
all the others are doing. So I think with our country, if you are looking at becoming big, we are locals. We know our people well. It's important to understand what is it that you could bring to the table, which would work for the Indian consumer. Whether it is as simple as knowing your consumer well enough, or coming up with a bespoke model which works for your business, and that model can change from business to business. It doesn't,
Absolutely.
there is no one way of looking at a particular brand. Like you look at Good Earth, when it started, how it started, and today Good Earth is probably the most go to for any expat or any visitor from any other part of the world. They feel that sense of comfort when they buy from Good Earth, and they know they're taking something great. When we're talking of
Right.
services, whether it is Urban Clap, or whether it is an e-commerce platform like Nykaa, which has managed to put across so many brands in one whole portal, and it's the go-to place for women for their grooming needs. So,
Absolutely.
so
Services
all
like
these business models are right
yeah.
for us.
Absolutely. You need to find the uniqueness in your model, and then able to address the need of the customers, and position your brand in such a way that it is able to address the needs of the customer, and then also identify the right position in the market. Right. Uh, Coming to the next one, how can the brand effectively communicate their values and purpose to connect with their audience in a deeper level? Right? Let me give you some examples over here where the brands are able to portray their authenticity, like Amul, the taste of India, right? Fab India, it's like celebrating Indian craftsmen, right? Biba talks about celebrating Indian traditions. Maneva talks about weddings and tradition. Raymond's talk about the complete man. Asian Paint talks about har ghar kuch uh, kehta hai. So it's
कहता है.
like,
Hmm.
yeah. So each and every brand has some kind of a tagline which actually talks about the brand, and it connects the people in a deeper way, right? So, so what do you think? What is your point of view on effectively communicating your values and purpose to connect with the audience in a deeper way?
There are two things that I think we can break down the question to. One is synthetically answering a question: what is the effective way of communicating the value or purpose of a brand? I think having a very strong brand promise is something that would always take you a long way. The second example you gave was of the taglines of all these brands. You notice the undercurrent; all of them are speaking emotion. They're not
Yeah,
speaking service. That's
yes.
exactly what we
None of,
need to understand, and that's exactly what we need to address. And if I'm allowed to speak of global brands, Nike is an excellent example. They don't talk
absolutely.
their product unnecessarily. They do not speak about, we have this feature, we have that feature. They speak about people who can correlate or speak about their product well. They speak about promises which the product can bring to them. They speak about the global outreach of no difference in skin across the world. They're open for a black to advert for the product. They're open for a white or a wheatish, either way. So they've broken that boundaries not to specifically dive into any, encapsulated into any skull. Similarly, when you talk of the brand that you spoke of, emotion is what drives us crazy. That's, I think, the bottom line. The reason why Bollywood does so well today is the fact that they know where to touch you and it kind of leaves an impact. So
Right.
your reason to believe has to be very strong, which means service is secondary. Your first go-to is to ensure that you've got the attention of the consumer, and that is from the heart. Next is
Absolutely.
next purely is the promise that you give to the customer that now that you've chosen me and now that you've come to me, it's important that you believe in what I have to say and I'll prove it to you that I'm there. This faith for any customer is a very strong reason to prefer you over any other brand who could be even cheaper than you. And there are enough histories to prove that a lot of brands have not been able to make it despite the fact that they were competitive in pricing, while a lot of them have been known for their quality and service, and people still prefer to invest in them because they know that at the end of the day are getting good quality and good service and somebody is listening to them. So be agile, listen to your consumer. When it is talking to you, listen to him. If there's a sales staff or shop floor staff which is speaking of some feedback or complain about the product, do not ignore. They are probably bringing it to you in crass language, which may not resonate with what you are speaking of in terms of the brand. But deep-rootedly, if you're able to analyze the feedback that is coming, you know where to correct yourself. And retail gives you a very, very clear and very quick format. आज प्रोडक्ट मार्केट में गया, 15 दिन में आपको आपके प्रोडक्ट का फीडबैक मिल जाएगा और 15 दिन में आपको ये भी समझ आ जाएगा कि आपने गलती कहाँ करी. You already are always on a self-correcting mode. That's the great part of being in retail. In fact, that's something that has always excited me. You make mistakes,
Yeah.
but you're not punished for them. Before you're ready, you're also given a window to correct that mistake and bounce back again.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you. I think what you mentioned about is the promise and the trust that you build with the people over a period of time. And brand is all about that. People will come back to you because they trust you. People are not going for money. People are going for the product and services that your brand is able to give to them. I think that's one crux of the point that you had made to them, to all the viewers for us. I think let's move on another section wherein we are talking about continuous innovation and consistency to reach out to the people or the brand, consistently launching new products and innovative ideas that will help your brand to position yourself in a different way. It's like how do you balance innovation and consistency? I would give an example where you can talk about putting a tadka in a dal with the right mix of masalas in that. That the taste is absolutely the same every time you have the dal. And it's not easy. I can tell you. I have tried it many times, and I failed miserably when preparing a dal for myself. So, what are the strategies can the business implement to elevate the brand from good to great? What do you think about that?
You gave me a very good example. See, you are speaking of the dal. दाल एक ऐसी चीज है लिटिल हर इंडियन घर में उसका एक वर्जन या उसकी एक वेरिएशन बनती है. आई थिंक देयर इज अ वेरी ग्रेट टेक होम फ्रॉम दैट एग्जांपल. When you are establishing your product basket which fits into the brand regime, you need to have a dal in it. And why I'm saying a dal in it, because you need to have a product which is not subject to a breakfast or a dinner or a winter food or a summer food. It's basically dal. It fits into your pocket. It fits into your meal 24 any meal of the day, 365 days of the year, which means you need to have products which are resonatable 365 days of the year, which are not correlated to a season, a cycle, or a theme or a trend which is trending, but something which is more or less like a bread or butter product category. The reason I always suggested to anybody who is wanting to get into establishing brands is because otherwise you're innovating, always innovating. And the shelf life of any innovation in retail is limited because people have a very short attention span today. and they will grow out of your look very fast. So at the end of the day, if you have something which keeps you going, which keeps you covered, that's the first strategy you need to have. Now, coming back to the innovation bit, I would say in today's world, getting
I think, Monet, we again lost you, your internet thing. Um, by the time Monet's internet gets back, let me give you an example of how innovation has helped a brand to become a national level brand. All of us knows about D-Decor, right? And D-Decor added a Bollywood tadka into it. And what did they do? They actually took they roped in a celebrity, Shah Rukh Khan and Gori Khan, into the brand promotion, and nobody has done it ever in a home textiles, and they have put brought glamour to the brand, and they are able to glamorize the home textile thing, where people are now talking about that I'm building a brand, I'm building a home, let me have a curtains and my cushions from D Decor fabric. That's what people started thinking about it. But D Decor has done it really well, and I'm pretty sure about it that lot of people have got an idea about it, how these companies are able to position their brand to a different level altogether. And Monet, I think she's okay. And one more thing about the brand is basically how the brand keeps up the promises on top of how the brand is basically able to understand the position, the promise that they have in the product. Like, their product needs to be at certain level, and if the promise is kept well, then definitely they are able to position the brand in a right way. Also, positioning is extremely important for any brands, and I think we should also avoid discounting of any kind of a discounting as far as possible, because people think that discounting is the way of doing it, but I would say more than a discounting, people wants a consistency in a product and a quality rather than a discounting, right? So I think these are the few things that I believe that your how you can take your brand from good to great is like having a right positioning of the brand, and you need to know the uh, uh, believe in the what is the right way that you can position your brand thing. And like that D-Decor example which I had given you, where iconic brand ambassador, if you're able to tie up, that will help your to take your brand to the different level altogether, right?
my
Monet,
apologies, the network here is really bad. Something is constantly going wrong.
no,
I don't know
no
what.
worries. I think there is a lot of rains in Bombay, and
Yeah.
a lot of things are not going as per our wishes. No worries. I think anyway, I think we were talking about taking a brand from good to great. We spoke about it, and I gave an example of D-Decor, wherein they are able to put a Bollywood tadka and Shah Rukh Khan and Gauri Khan coming and making it an aspirational brand altogether. So that was a totally a different level, which was never seen in a textile company, and that's been done by them, right? Uh, Let me move on to the next one. How do you balance the innovation and with maintaining the brand consistency, ensuring like it happens when it comes to innovation and the brand consistency, there's a disconnect with what we have seen. What do you think about it? What is missing in the market, and where do you see the gap is there, and how people can correct that kind of a thing?
Well, what is required for today's consumer is for them to find product which allows them to question the ethnicity of the product. I mean, you see more and more consumers which are driven by the choices they make about the core companies, whether they are getting their funding from the right sources, whether they are involved in any kind of malpractices. Gen Z today is very bothered about all these things, which clearly means that they are making very informed choices. environment conscious decisions is something which has become the hour of the day decision for everybody nowadays. Clearly,
Yeah.
looking at what we are heading into, looking into bulk productions, mass productions, is something which probably may need some bit of correction. And I feel there the innovation is required to the aspect of trying to understand that the product has to have a certain shelf life for it to live with you for certain number of cycles. Just for the
Mhm.
urge of creating something which is going to be, we are able to sell fast because of the cost, is probably not where the conscience of the market should lie. That is something that I feel strongly. In fact, a lot of manufacturing companies may not agree with me on this, because for a lot of us, making more is the milestone of the fact that we are doing good. But if I am able to give some product which has a better shelf life, which is able to give you the promise of lasting you a couple of seasons, I think as a brand and as an innovator, I've done both justices to aligning it with my goals and accordingly.
Right.
Second is never forgetting functionality. I think when we talk of brand, we also speak of the product correlation to brand, because ultimately product is the byproduct and recognition of what we are doing. Having anything which is functionally more suitable for the consumer today will ensure that the acceptance is high. The consumer today is very adaptable, so you are able to take risk today when it comes to bringing in innovative strategies, whether it is product or strategy or selling or marketing or speaking to the consumer. People are open to hearing a lot of things. I'll give you a very simple example that has more to do with marketing. The recent brand campaign done by Swiggy, wherein a person is trying to order food online, and instead of writing chawal, he writes chavla, and suddenly there's this vent which pops up and picks up Juhi Chawla and is wanting to transport her to the consumer, and suddenly the consumer corrects on her phone saying it's not chavla, it's chawal, and then they drop her back. So the idea is, it's a very bizarre idea, but at the end of the day, it made sure that the people were getting you were getting the attention for whatever you were creating.
Absolutely.
It also
Absolutely.
means that you need to be very sure of what you want. Today's time is not to play in the gray area. It is to be very specific of what you want to give, what you want to speak, where you want to put yourselves. So that intelligence and that introspection in terms of having your strategy or recipe for the brand is extremely important, because आपका
Absolutely.
thought of innovation भी वहीं से निकलेगा.
वहीं से निकलता है, सही बात है, बिल्कुल सही है. I can
Hmm.
I can add to it. I think I like cars, and so innovation and consistency. We can see Tata has been facing a lot of stiff competition in the past with the Hyundai, Marutis of the world, and they launched in 2000, I suppose, the Nexon and Harrier brands, and they were huge success. And why these models or the products were successful? Because it was addressing the need for innovation, it was addressing the need for the modern design for the car, and obviously the safety. And they offered the EV, the electric car, at a very good price. That was the most important thing, which was not seen in the Indian market. That's why they were super successful in these models, right? So obviously, Squeaky example was a great example. You mentioned about Chawal and Chawla, right? The brand is about how do you connect people, and how do you actually able to address the needs of them, and as quickly as possible is the need of an hour, right? And
Totally. You gave an example of the Tata automobiles. I'll add one more
yeah,
reason to their success. They were the only company who were holding stocks of their vehicles. All the others were busy booking and then going back to the plant and manufacturing. Tata made, withheld, and that's why they sold well. Which means your timing is impeccably important for you to be visible.
absolutely,
While you may be doing all the right things, if you're not available in the right window, chances are people will lose interest. I think that's another thing which
absolutely,
anybody who's looking at has to address. You know,
absolutely. So I agree with you on this. Uh, Let me move on to another thing which is really important nowadays is basically how do you digitally transform, and how do you engage with your customers? Because obviously your brand needs to be visible, but also you need to be connected where people are there. like social media, the way the people are engaging, the way people are putting a comment on your product and all that. You need to be connected to those people. It's like I would say digital world is something like you are having a feature phone, and in the world of smartphone, and then you are upgrading yourself to the smartphone, and then you are realizing this is too much for me, I cannot handle it, I need to go back to something which may help me to balance it out. But you don't want to get away from that, because that is something which is giving you a lot of new features and advantages, and that's what the brand digitalization is all about. In the digital journey of a brand, how do you actually ensure that your brand is connected to the people, it is engaging the people, and they are able to understand the need and address it in a right way? So, how important is digital transformation for an evolving brand, and what steps should be taken uh, to basically ensure that digitally we are connected with the consumers? What is your take on that?
See, it's a very strategic move, but a very pertinent one. If I'm talking of the consumer segment today, the fact that most of the brands, even if they have been around for centuries in the form of whatever, mainly working in the B2B grid, the B2C conversation is definitely required, because people realize that even if they are available on a mainstream market where they are competing with a lot of other products, a lot of other brands, if people don't know about them, the chances are they are not curious enough to come even know what they are all about. Your decision to be non-aligned to social media presence could also be a strategic move. I'm talking of the Uber luxury segment of vehicles, which do not put in any advertisements on social platforms. They don't speak product features, they don't speak new launches, but they are very bespoke in their approach. They're very discreet in their analogy of how they want to be perceived. They clearly make it sound like we are not for everyone, and it's a strategy that they follow. But if you're wanting to be in the mainstream, then having conversation with your consumer is pertinent. And there, what you need to do is not speak just product, speak value. Make conversation around the values of the brand, not speak about product attributes, not speak about I sell this, I sell that. Try and rope them into other avenues of life. For example, if you've seen the latest advertisement done by Parleji, I'm not sure whether you've seen it, which speaks of this school teacher and how she's been around the school and it's her last day in the school and she's going to retire, the principal. And one of the junior students comes and she's roaming about in one of the lawns around. And the students ask, I see you coming here frequently. Why are you there? And she simply turns around and says, you know, what's special about this place is each tree is actually a student of my first ever batch. It's a great concept. What the girl
Absolutely.
eventually does is on her farewell, she ensures that all the senior students of batch one are there. So what the brand did was actually come up with a story which resonated with the fact that, you know, it's emotion that you hold on close to. It also brought back a very strong point that Parle-G has been around for years. There is
Yes, right.
nothing debating Parle-G. So I think they did a brilliant job of putting both the aspects of the brand and the human emotion dovetailed in such a way that it resonated a bell. So what social media today stands for is your content that you're creating, whether it is finding the right user to be able to connect with it, whether the content that you're creating is resonating with brand's personality that you've spoken about, whether it takes forward the lineage that the brand has, if it's an innovation based brand, whether it is putting in communication which is exciting enough for a particular age group or a genre to look into it and say, yeah, I resonate with this, I recognize with it, and so probably this is something for me. So social media becomes extremely important. Your engagement with consumer today is way more important than being able to sell them the product. I feel most companies, if they have been able to do a great campaign or a great visibility on social media spaces, on digital spaces, for them to move from one belt, which is a brick and mortar store, to a digital format of selling, it's a chalk and cheese walk. It's very easy.
Absolutely. I agree with you, I think. Yeah. So I think there's the element of digital, like how do you ensure, because it's so much to do when you talk about products and brand, and you're present in e-commerce, you basically the omni-channel presence has been there. how do you manage that in terms of like Shopify is there? There are tools like Zoho CRM is there. There are social media platforms that you need to manage. Then, if you are doing email marketing, also you might be able to do what are each Mailchimp and all, and the chatbots and all. So these are some of the technologies that are being used nowadays to actually help the brands to overcome the challenge of too many things to do in a less way. You can actually use AI and chatbots to overcome those kind of challenges. I think social media presence is definitely important, and I believe that having a engagement with the customers on the theme and the story that you are trying to tell about your brand is really important, right?
Yep.
All right. Okay. So now how do we ensure that the brand stays relevant and because what happens like over a period of time it might become obsolete. How do you maintain brand relevance for the fast changing industry and the market, because trends keeps on changing, fashion, lifestyle, we've seen trends change like anything, and this season is something and tomorrow the season totally change and the things become obsolete, and you have the stocks with you and you need to get rid of that. So how do you ensure that your brand is relevant and in the fast changing environment and the market?
Very simple recipe, but most people fail, is to be consumer centric. If you are constantly observing your consumer, there is very less likelihood of you to make a drastic mistake. You could be making a
Yeah.
mistake which is probably smart, which can be corrected. But if you are consumer centric and you're watching what's happening in the behavioral changes, the ethnography of where you are, the chances of you going wrong are lesser. The only worry is in terms of any brand coming under pressure to end up making something which is helping them. Which is creating more and more pockets for them to come under pressure is not a very advisable position. So, what to produce, why to produce, and how much is a very tricky call. That's why I said bread butter product can be continued, produced, kept, and be available on shelf throughout the year. But when you talk of other products and services which are season based or domain based or ethnography based, then you need to know the consumer of that particular genre and address it accordingly. Having innovation or having the capability of trying to ensure that you don't go out is basically juggling too many balls in a hand, but they need to be juggled. That's how it is. You do things which are relevant, you speak things which are relevant, you project things which are relevant. And that's the only way to do it.
No, absolutely. I think customer centricity is the most important thing. Obviously, I understand. I have an example to share over here. Sabyasachi, we know this brand and this designer who's been Delhi based, and they are into high fashion garments, high fashion bridal wear, and the product is totally different. Where a lot of artisans work on those creating those products. As a craftsman. Now, Sabyasachi during the COVID time, they didn't have any presence in an e-commerce platform. And during the COVID time, they were really finding it difficult. How do we maneuver our business to the changing times when people are present in the e-commerce world? So they started offering their products to the global market through the e-commerce channel. They started on the e-commerce platform where they could pick the selected products which will be offered on the e-commerce. Not just that, and we've not heard from Sabyasachi. What they did, they tied up with the H&M, and they tied up with H&M to create a consumer brand where the hand crafted products or the products with hand embroidery and the craftsman spirit is available for the masses as well. That's how they were able to uh, put across the Sabyasachi brand with H&M collaboration was available to the masses. Uh, I think this was into 2022. I think they tied up
Yeah.
with H&M and they were able to do that for the mass market. We've not heard a designer doing a top designer is doing something like that, and this was a big success for them. Anything that you would like to contribute on this?
Yeah, so there are two things here which are interesting again. One, we are speaking of a designer who has been true to his brand promise or brand lineage that he always wanted to create.
Yeah.
Sabyasachi's day one work till today, he has always chosen to work with the crafts, with the local craftsmen, and come up with something which is very hand driven, difficult to replicate. I think that was the USP he always wanted to establish.
Yeah.
Now comes his participation or collaboration with other brands. Prior to tying hands with H&M, Sabya did a line with Pottery Barn as well, which I'm aware of. For international brands to bring in specific designers to launch their labels is something which is very popular in the other parts of the world. In India, it has never happened. In India, you only have, associations like this coming live in a very small format. A lot of brands have started doing it. For instance, while in my years with Portico, we were persistently doing two fashion lines, fashion bedding lines. One was with Nita Lula, and the other was with Wendell Rodriguez. He's no more, but we took that concept further. So there's a lot of learning to carry forward. What they had was some specific style of working which got translated into the home line, while what Sabya has is something very different. He's speaking the language of a specific design oriented domain which is handicraft driven, which is more of hand, and obviously very difficult for anybody to even think of copying or replicating. उनका यूएसपी वैल्यू ही वही है. आज की डेट में अगर हम इंडियन ब्रांड्स की भी बात करें तो इंस्टाग्राम पे आप जाइए, देयर आर स्मॉल ब्रांड्स which are coming up, which are functioning in a similar sensibility. They are creating their own lines. They are coming up with things which are very unique to them. For instance, Samulam, I don't know if you've heard of them. Samulam is a very small line which has come up with their range of techniques, and those techniques are the driving factor for them to come bring in more and more product with each offering.
Absolutely.
It's a crochet thing that they try and do, and they have converted it into stoles, into scarves, into jewelry, into hand gears, into anything that you can probably think of that can be created. So that's their ASP. So basically what I'm saying is for brand to have that identity and be true to it is very important. That's how so many of these small brands which are popping up in India today are trying to bring to you. You see these specific things happening
absolutely around. I think, yeah, because you need to, because it's around I think they are trying to find the right USP for their brand and trying to innovate a product where customer really likes it and they keep coming back to them for that. Right now this also brings us to the point wherein there's we are talking about fast fashion in the evolving market, and there are new trends which keep coming up in the market. And it is difficult for a brand to maneuver them from a particular look and feel of a brand to actually take a turn and move towards the new trend. How do they overcome those kind of a challenge? I can talk about a brand called Biba, for example. So Biba used to be a traditional wear brand, which slowly moved on to fusion wear, right? And they brought like a traditional wear to the fusion wear market, and it was quite successful for them. And that's how they were able to go international also, because their designs were talking about a woman, a modern woman, and a younger generation also. And they were able to connect well with the people who wanted to look traditional but also modern, right? And they were able to address that in a beautiful way. And also H&M collaboration with Sabyasachi also is one of the example which actually changed the way that Sabyasachi used to do the business, and they identified the gap in the market, and they actually tied up with H&M to create a product which will be definitely India-centric, Indian market-centric product, right? So what do you think? How do the brands overcome the challenges from the trends which are changing in the market?
See, for me, I look at any collaboration as a marriage association. There are two different families who are trying to come on common ground to find their parallels and eventually find a way to balance. It's more or less on the similar lines. I try and take simpler examples because people will be able to correlate with it better. Purely because you have a partner who doesn't eat the same things that you eat. She doesn't wear the clothes that you probably seen your mother wearing. But there has to be a middle path which is found. So both the sides have to be looked into. Consumer preferences are changing on a very frequent basis nowadays. Now, trying to look at that as a challenge or trying to look at that as an opportunity is a choice every brand will make. Today, I can decide and say, I am good at so and so, and I will just want to do so and so. Yeah, perfectly fine. But then it will only allow you to grow in a certain fashion. But if I want to look at the larger picture, adapting is the only way out. And adapting fast, I would say, because they don't give you time. And you have to be on your toes, which means if you're studying the undercurrent, you can always find ways to marry both off. So it's not like taking a U-turn and going away from your ethics and ethos. Like I said, अगर आपके brand की personality आपने strongly edge करी तो आप बीच का रास्ता you will always come up with something which is tailor-made for you, which will always work. In fact, at Studio Six Sense, the kind of client recommendations that we're giving to all the new clients that we're working with are on similar lines, trying to understand where they're coming from, what is it that they'd like to hold closest to themselves, not forego, and what are my gray areas to play. So recommendation is being tried to be put forward on the table for discussion, keeping that format in mind. That yes, you are good at this, great. How do we optimize the next step, which ensure that your good is also a part of it and the new is also a part of it, and then come up with something which kind of works. So it's basically marrying off. I would say it's like putting the differences on table and probably celebrating them.
Yeah, I think we have last few minutes. I have two more questions to go. Before we wrap up, I think there must be a lot of people. If you have questions, you can put the questions in the chat box, and we can definitely try to answer them. Also, if in case you would like to get in touch with you, we are planning to offer you a 30-minute strategy business session on basically understanding your brand and where is the gap in your brand, and how do we support you in terms of creating a brand which is very popular in the Indian market. So if in case you would like to get in touch with us, you can definitely. We are putting a form wherein you can just drop in your information and we will get in touch with you, right? Coming to the next one, what do you see as a future trend in the brands, and how can these companies prepare and stay ahead?
See, now how to stay ahead is first is choose your do's and don'ts very wisely. And I would always suggest that there are times when we get aspirational about going out in the market, testing your product, about whether it'll do well. Having a test run for your product is something which is amicably important, and that's a recent service we added to our portfolio, wherein we ensured that the brand custodian, if he's trying to introduce something good in the market or something new in the market, how confidently he should go and attack it, whether it's a great preposition or if there are any corrections that are needed. You need to have a very strong litmus test in order to, dovetail it with what you are trying to bring in. Ideas can get rejected right away. There is always a possibility of that. But if your research and if your correlation is right, there is no way you can. I would always believe there's no way you can actually go wrong. Going about doing any service or a product, planning, your conviction comes from your research and your study. So if you are looking at being consistently present in the market, the highest probability for you to ensure that you're always going to do good is constantly be on the side wherein you are understanding or researching your consumer, his habits, the trends that are seeing in the market in terms of the buying behavior. These are the things which will help you drive or eliminate things that you don't want to do. It keeps you insured and safe. Even if you're discounting, I would say discounting is something which it's a heartburn for all retail Indian brands. But even if you're choosing to discount, it has to be done with a purpose, with some kind of a value addition that it brings to the brand. You can't just think कि सारे discount पे जा रहे तो मैं भी चला जाता हूँ. Purposely, there are a lot of brands who don't go on discount. It doesn't mean that they think they're too high for themselves, but they want that position for themselves. And if you're choosing to
You
go on
mentioned
discount, you
about
have to have a very
you
strong
mentioned
case.
about IKEA example where they also started
Oh yeah,
going in the
oh
market.
yeah. It looked like Big Bazaar when I went there. I said, let me experience it. It was madness. After
Yeah,
a point, I said, no,
yeah,
this is no IKEA experience. I want to get out of
yeah.
here. So people reinvent it. Some are in a great hurry, so they don't wait out the decisions they are making. But it's important. I think you do a dipstick. Nothing is stopping you. A lot of money and resources are at stake. Do a dipstick. It helps you take confident and informed decisions.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I think this is quite important, wherein uh, people ability to actually gauge the market changing trends and able to maneuver themselves to adapt to that is the art, and it's not easy. I can tell. It's basically how updated you are about the changing trends in the market, and how seamlessly you are able to change those trends into get those trends into your brand, and also address the right needs and keeping the values and the purpose of the brand intact. I think you put it in a beautiful way, Monet. I think we are 2 minutes. Uh, Almost for 2 minutes. We will take 1 or 2 minutes more. What is the kind of a piece of advice that you would like to give to the entrepreneurs or the business leaders looking to take their brand to the next level?
I'll break it down very strategically. My suggestion to anybody who is getting into this space is to be strong on two aspects. One is the AQ, two is the EQ. Now, when I say AQ, I'm talking of adaptability quotient. When I'm talking of EQ, I'm speaking of empathy. The reason why these two are important today, that if you don't know your neighbor well, if you don't know your business partner well, if you don't know your consumer well, you are going to create something which is not going to go down well or stay there for longer. If you are able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and then come up with a solution, chances are you will know where it is going to hurt, and you will not want to give something which is hurting anyone. And if you're somebody who is quick to adapt and say, I'm sorry, let's move on, you're a great guy then as a brand. You're a great person because you're already open to accepting that, yeah, you could be wrong. And for all you know, this could become your ESP. So I would think A2, किसी के लिए भी किसी भी profession में, why just retail? Adaptability and empathy are two reasons which will keep you going, which keep you grounded. You will not make mistakes.
Very well, very well. I think you have AQ and EQ. I think these are two words of advice that Monet would like to give to you. I would personally say I think you should be passionate about whatever you're doing, and don't think that you are creating a brand to as a manufacturer to sell your product in a market in the right way. But it is not that. You have to create a brand with the passion, with the need that you're trying to address in the market, and able to take it to the different level altogether. You should not be just thinking, okay, I'm creating a brand and then that brand will just start working from tomorrow. No, it's a 5 year journey. It takes time. You need to have patience. You need to be consistent. You need to be able to address the right service customers need for taking that brand to the different level altogether. All right. Thank you very much, Monet, for your valuable insights and the time that you had given for the fireside chat. And I think I really like the way you have put to the people how you can take your brand to the different level altogether. And we would like people to get in touch with us in case you have any such in, intention where you would like to understand how do I take my brand to the different level, because we as an expert we bring almost like 60 years of experience on the table, and that's not a small amount of experience that we have to, I think I have around 27 28 years in the industry. I started at the age of 16, and Monet has been there for almost 24 years now. 20
26 years, yeah, 26,
26
26.
years, like, yeah. So a lot of experience and energy that we bring together as a team members to take your brand to the different level. Thank you so much, Monet. Over to Neha.
Thank you so much, Amit. Thank you for your time.
would like to extend my deepest gratitude to our incredible speakers for today. To Mr. Amit Mittal, his insights on business growth, strategies, and navigating complex challenges has truly been invaluable. And his visionary approach to helping brands grow and in the highly competitive markets has left us all with very fresh perspectives and actionable ideas. Next, I would like to express my sincere thanks to Mrs. Monet Kella. Ma'am, your deep understanding of the design, the home, and lifestyle industry, and your experiences in building and positioning brands have added tremendous value to this discussion. Your knowledge of India's diverse market dynamics combined with vast experience has offered this important insights that how brand can thrive in this market. And it's in we I like to thank each and every one of you who has been a part of this discussion, and we have been floating a Google form where you can, if you have any query, you can fill it and send it back to us so that we can get back to you. And thank you again to both of you and to everyone who has joined. We look forward to bringing you with more such enriching conversations in the future. Have a wonderful evening ahead. Thank you.